Well, welcome everybody to the World at War Comics podcast. My next special guest, my good friend, Mr. Nandor Shaffer. Nandor, it's good to see you again. Last time we spent some time together, we were at C22 putting on the Heroic Awards, which was a lot of fun, man. Had a blast hanging out with you, getting to know you, sleeping in the smallest apartment possible with the most amount of people possible, which was not as fun, but fun at the same time, man. Got to know everybody a lot more, and I hope we get an opportunity to do that again, but with maybe more beds.
I agree. It's one of those like experiences that I didn't know how well it would go, and in a lot of ways it shouldn't have worked out as well as it did. You know what I mean? Like the more I think about that trip, and the more I think about all of us fitting in that tiny apartment, and all of the logistics that were involved in getting everyone there, and doing the panel and all of that stuff is just like, it was kind of a miracle, to be honest, of how well everything worked. But it was so much fun. I mean, I had a blast. I mean, remember when I was like in the middle seat, like of Eric's car? That was just like, we did, there's so much of us like all fit into this one vehicle, and oh man, that was brutal, but it was a lot of fun, and it was honestly the most fun I've had at a convention. I got to meet a lot of great people, and got to meet you, and it's awesome. Like I really was able to expand my comics community in a way that I hadn't before. And I think the Heroic Awards were a great success, and I can't wait to do it again. Like you said, I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so. Now Rick told me he has a big space at his place for all of us, so I'm holding him to it. If it is going to be where we think it's going to be for this next year, but I
Yes.
agree with you, man. Even though it was a little painful sleeping on a kitchen floor, man, to be able to build out that community and get to know
Yeah.
everybody so much, man. It's a memory, right? That will last forever, man. It was a lot of fun, and C2E2 I thought was a pretty successful event, man. It was, Artist Alley was popping, man, the
It
entire
was.
time. They had some
Yeah.
big names, and yeah, it was great, man. It was great.
Yeah, it was my first, C2E2, and it was just like incredible. And I went to a lot of different panels, and like I said, I got to meet a lot of great people. And it felt like I play in a band, and it felt like going on tour, like that's what it's like when you go to conventions, and you're like with a large group of people, and you're all kind of getting all your gear together and making sure everything can fit, and make sure everything is right. So in that regard, I was somewhat like familiar with the vibe, and kind of with just how to get through all this kind of stuff. You have to like go with the flow, really. You can't, I mean, you can plan as much as you can plan, but at the same time, you just never know like if something will happen. Like it's just like you got to kind of go with the flow, and make it happen. And that's what was so cool about it. So I can't, yeah, hopefully I hope to go to C2E2 next year. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was blast. I thought it was really well put together by
Yeah.
whoever's involved with C2E2, and I agree with you. I hope we get to do that again. I got to meet Al in person, right? Meeting Al
Yeah.
like this is unique enough. Meeting
Mhm.
Al in person is like another level of energy that you have to really be prepared for. But yeah, the whole team was awesome, man. But more about you, Mr. Nandor. I mean, I was introduced to a few of your comics. I think Man-Child, and there was a couple of others that we talked about a little bit. Didn't realize the type of writer that you are, which was awesome, man. And I knew you were kind of working on some other stuff. But before we get into that, what I would love, Nandor, is can you give us a little bit of your background of where this passion for storytelling began in your life, and how do you come up with some of the concepts that you have been able to come up with already so far, and how long have you been holding those before you start to release them?
Yeah, of course. I was just doing the math the other day, and I was kind of adding up how many pages of comics that I've written. Not necessarily published yet, but put out there. But like, just how many stories have I written? How many pages of comics? And I'm nearly at the 1,000 mark of like pages of written, scripted material that I've written, and I've published about 400 pages altogether that have been crowdfunded and put out in stores and stuff. So I've been making comics for about 7 years now, and I started making comics. Started writing comics right out of high school. So I'm 27 right now, and I started writing my first book called Seasons, and it's still unfinished. It's going to be a 4-part graphic novel series, and I think I showed you volume 2 when we were at C2E2. Is that hardcover book? And anyways, I wanted to, ever since I was young. I mean, I've been a nerd for forever, right? And so I've always, not only did I think certain characters were really cool and they were exciting and these stories were exciting, but I realized just how influential they were to my development. It was like growing up and kind of my morality. We look at superheroes and we're inspired by them, and we look at heroes and villains and good and evil and things like that. And it started to stories, when I look back on it now, when I think about kind of my journey as a storyteller, I just see how much they've influenced me as a person and how they've challenged me. And that was something that I was like, what is happening there? I was so curious about, not only why am I so interested in these stories? Why do they move me? Why do they make me think about things and create scenarios that I never would have faced before? And how are they reflections of humanity and society and politics and religion? All those things that I feel like in a lot of ways, stories, more so than facts or like truth, like stories are kind of on a different level of relaying facts and truth that you can't necessarily do on a person to person basis. And there's something truer about covering certain topics and certain things that are like more real when you tell it in a story, because we all do that in a way. When we talk to people all the time, we're telling people about our day, we're telling people about our lives. Right now I'm telling you a story about my life and writing and story. And so like I realized that's kind of how human beings really orient themselves in a lot of ways. And I that's what I wanted to get my hands on. I wanted to see if I could do that. I was like curious of, and I felt like it was a calling. I felt like I was called to write more, and I was fascinated, and I wanted to kind of see what I could do. Do I have anything to say? I would ask myself those questions. And so that's where Seasons came about. Was I wanted to write a story about a character whose abilities change through one year. It's a 1-year journey. His name's Fletcher, and he's having to face a lot of familial problems, a lot of relationship problems, and a lot of problems with his own self. And it's kind of this big character-driven story epic about a character who has to overcome all of these emotional and like real life obstacles that he has to get through. And I started posting that online for free on my website for people to read as a webcomic when I was about 19 or 20 years old. And I got really good response from it. And it was really encouraging to me. So what I did is, I learned about crowdfunding and I learned about Kickstarter. And, Kickstarter has really changed. Crowdfunding has really evolved over the last, 5 to 7 years. And when I started getting into it, it was still kind of, I wouldn't say it was in its infancy, but it was, people were still finding out about crowdfunding comics. Now I think it's a lot more common that you can see that and you hear about that. But at the time, my first book was a 100-page hardcover that I was crowdfunding on Kickstarter, and I was 19, 20 years old trying to make this thing happen. And we were able to raise over $6,500, and we made it happen. And it was like insane to me. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so exciting. This is like what a way to create, what a way to like
Yeah.
have a direct line to customers. And that was in 2017. And so, from then on, I've been making comics, and I've published the first two volumes of Seasons, Man-Child issues 1 and 2, and then Lifeline, which was a collaborative graphic novel project that I worked with 7 different artists from all around the world. And it tells the life story of this guy, but you see his life through the eyes of different people with each chapter. So you get to see like his daughter talk about him at a certain age, or his father talk about him when he was a young boy. And it kind of charts his life in a way where you see how you impact other people, and that's what I wanted to do with that story. So now with the Fabled Offering, I'm getting into sci-fi fantasy, which is a genre that I've always loved and I've always adored so much. And I'm a huge Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Dune, I mean, Isaac Asimov fan. I love a lot of like vintage retro sci-fi and fantasy. And so I've been in the game for a while, and it's been really fulfilling. And it's only, the more I create and the more that I do this, the more I realize this is what I feel like I was meant to do, because I'm so passionate about it. And uh, I couldn't really see myself do anything else. I love telling stories, and I love communicating art with people. So that was a really long-winded response, but yeah, I've really, really excited to be here and to make comics.
Yeah, yeah, no, it certainly comes across when you read anything that you have put together. Was there someone in your life, like maybe a teacher or a family member, that really drew that passion of storytelling out of you? Or did you just find yourself kind of falling into it, maybe like most of us, Saturday morning cartoons or something like that? What drove that passion to where you're at today?
I think a lot of it was I've always been the reader in my family. My parents never really read, or my brother, we read comics together growing up, but it was really something that I found. Like it was like I wasn't too inclined to do sports or athletics, or I'm somewhat literate and smart, but like I'm not like into computing or a lot of nerd stuff. But I really loved making and absorbing art. And like I used to draw a lot as a kid, and I loved I don't know. My mom was an artist. Like she wouldn't say she was an artist, but she did a lot of arts and crafts. Like that was something that was important in our family, and we would work on stuff, and we would create art. Use chalk on the sidewalk, and on our house steps, and we would make things, and that was something that I think sparked a lot of like DIY stuff. Like you can make your own stuff, you can create these different things, and you can use what's around you, use the tools that are available, and you can create art. And I think that was something that I realized you can kind of do anything as long as you have the resources and you can find those things, you can make these things happen. And so, and I also grew up in a time when like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies were just coming out, and the X-Men films were coming out. And it was like, the MCU has really eclipsed all of that. But at the same time, growing up in the early 2000s and watching those movies, um, they really are incredible when you look back and you're like, what they were able to accomplish and what they were able to do. And I mean, there's still a lot of people who view Spider-Man 2 to be like maybe the greatest superhero movie still, and so being able to grow up in that time, it was like, I don't know, those movies were really influential to me, and they really sparked my love for superheroes in a way that, when I found my comic book store, it was like, whoa, there's like years and years and decades of like history of all these characters. And that just, blew my mind. So I think it was kind of definitely a combination of that. But also, I was drawn to like other characters. I'm a very introspective, kind of isolated kid, and so like I found a lot of there's something really intimate and like there's something really special about having that experience with a written work that is meaningful to you. and maybe it doesn't mean that much to other people, but when you were reading it, when you were in, that time and place, you're it's unique to like your perspective and growing up and where you were at that time. And when I look back at art and I think about kind of the memories and the things that I've been through, I kind of trace my years by what movie came out that year. You know what I mean? It's like wait, that was like 2004. What was I doing? Well, what movie came out? Like, you know what I mean? And so it's kind of like a way to, um, like I said, like trace where you've come from and what you've done. And I've always looked at stories as kind of that way.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's awesome. It's beautiful. I think everybody has their path into it, but I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of relatability when it comes to comic book telling, storytelling. Between everybody, I ask that same question. There's just their own unique way and where they grew up and how they grew up that makes it a little bit different. But I always love to hear about that. Now, as far as genre goes, you talked about kind of that romantic sci-fi that you've been really wanting to dig into, and we have the Fable offering. Can you talk about when did that story start? Because it's a little bit longer than your average comic book, right?
It
24,
is.
28 pages. I think this is what, 42, 46, somewhere in there, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken.
46. Yeah.
46, yeah. So it's a little bit longer story. The art is absolutely beautiful throughout the entire thing, by the way. But when you dig into it, man, there's a lot of depth into the story. And I had to find myself having to go back and reread something real quick,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to miss something that was going to tie something together. So, how long have you had this story? And how long did it take for you, from start to finish, before you were ready to go to print for something like this?
Yeah. So I first started working on it. I believe it was like early, like maybe the spring of 2022. And so it was, it's been over 2 years since I started working on it, and I started. I always bring a notebook with me, kind of everywhere I go, and I started writing down notes. I wanted to. I approached this particular story, the Fabled Offering. I approached it kind of from like in two ways, and it was like I wanted to do a one shot, and I'd never written a one shot before, and I also wanted to write in a different genre. And I was like, what haven't I written in? So like Seasons is a supernatural superhero book. Manchild is kind of a straight superhero action dramedy, and then Lifeline is just a straight drama. And so I wanted to do something completely different. I think it's really important as a writer to always challenge yourself, and also to, when you're at conventions, you might have that person who doesn't like superheroes, or doesn't want anything, that you have, but like maybe they're a huge sci-fi nut, or maybe they love fantasy or something. And so I kind of did it from a challenging creative perspective, and then also from a business sense of like, okay, what do I, not have that maybe people would want to read, and maybe, it's also being a one shot. It's a way for people to read my work, and if they enjoy it, maybe they'll like, something else that I've done. So that was kind of my frame of mind when I was going into the story. But when I started thinking about, okay, if I were to do a sci-fi fantasy story and it was a one shot, like how do you do that? Because sci-fi fantasy in general is so big.
Yeah.
There's so much to world building, and I was like, I'm kind of picking the worst genre to try to do, like, a one shot. And so it was really challenging in that aspect. But I something I pride my writing in myself in with my writing is being able to like get to the core of a character, and to do really character driven stuff. And so I thought, just I kept reminding myself, just keep it to Aurelia, keep it to the main character,
Yeah.
and make it her story. And you don't have to worry about all of the, the foliage and like what this mountain's called, and like all this kind of, extraneous world building. Just keep it intimate, keep it relatable, keep it um emotional. And so what is the emotional core of the story? And that was my anchor to what I wanted to tell. And I wanted to tell a story about a mother, essentially, and she's pregnant, and she's on this journey, and she's trying to meet with this ancient deity, and you're wondering, why is she all alone? Why is she having to go on this journey alone? And what does that entail? And um, I wanted to get to the heart of what it would be like for a mother to struggle to, um, get to her destination and to be faced with an impossible choice that she has to face. And that was um, that was really compelling to me. I was like, that's a story. Like there's a story there, and there's something that I can work with that in a way, and I could make something really impactful, and I could keep it. Marco's art really, Marco Roblin, the artist, he really um, paints a beautiful picture of the world and shows you all these different creatures and all these aliens, and all of this like creative energy that he poured into the book that um, creates this sense of immersion that you have with it that feels alien and otherworldly, and kind of trippy. It has a trippy aspect to it, and it was such a beautiful marriage, I think, of me trying to get to a really impactful, emotional character moment and story, and having all of that kind of window dressing to make something beautiful and make something like bittersweet. And so I feel like the all of the, what do I want to say here, the kind of the world building and all of the background stuff Marco really brought to the table on getting everything to where you feel like you're on another planet, you're on another world, but hopefully the characters themselves, they feel very human as much as they can be human, even though they're not on planet Earth. So it was trying to create a story that could accomplish that, and trying to create a story that could do both of those things was a huge balance act for me, because I want people to feel like they're escaping to another destination. I want people to feel like they're able to be a part of a larger universe or larger world, but through the eyes of someone that they can really sympathize with and empathize with, and really feel their pain and feel their victory. And so, that process of writing that story, working with Marco, and getting the book to print, it really took 2 years, over 2 years to get to that point, because it was a larger book. It was 46 pages, and the page count kept growing. I wrote the story, and I think originally it was around like 30 to 34 pages or something. And then working with Marco, we realized, some really great opportunities of moments and scenarios and scenes that we could really work with. So it really became this huge, it became bigger than I imagined it to be. But I think it really spoke to the kind of epic, I kind of call it like an intimate epic, because it's a character driven story, but there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of things that you're diving deep into. And I've had a few readers who have read it who have absolutely loved it, and I had one reader who said he had to read it twice because there's a twist there at the end. There's definitely something that makes you want to go back and have to reread it and think about, wait a second, like, how did this happen? And that was like something I always wanted, and so, yeah, it's making comics is hard. Making comics is a journey. And being on this journey with Marco, and making this book, and being with Aurelia, and doing this story, it's been huge. I'm really happy. I'm really relieved to finally get it out there and for people to read it.
Yeah, well, congratulations. Now, have you worked with Marco before on other things? Because his art is so unique. And I've only seen Manchild, your other title. Have
Yeah.
you worked with him in other areas as well before, or is this the first time that you two come together for a story like this?
Yeah, this is actually our first time working
Yeah.
together. And honestly, it was like one of the most like fulfilling and exciting collaborations that I've had. I've worked with a lot of different artists on my projects, and being able to do this one with Marco, it's like we were reading each other's mind in a lot of ways. And something about, you probably noticed while reading the story, is like his color palette
Yeah.
is all about mood. It's all about like how to get the most out of what's being written and what the scene, what is happening, you know, visually. And um he brought so much of his own like experience when it comes to, you know, color when you need it to emphasize a moment or emphasize a scene. And we kept talking, you know, we would have these video calls and these chats that would last like 2 or 3 hours, you know, talking about the story and talking about the art and, you know, where we're headed and all this stuff. And we've become great friends through it. It's been really exciting. He's been like one of the most fun collaborators that I've had. And we actually have a few things we're kind of working on together, but the next thing that is going to be coming out is a 12-page Little Red Riding Hood meets Cthulhu story that's going to be a part of this uh, anthology that's going to be on Kickstarter soon. And we were able to do that together, and it was amazing working with him again to do that story.
Yeah.
But I foresee us working together again, you know, on a lot of projects because he's not only is he amazing, but I really enjoy working with him. He's a great collaborator.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you, is he the colorist? But I believe he is the colorist as well, correct?
He is, yeah, yeah. He
Yeah.
does it all. He does it all.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. I'm wondering from your perspective, is it, I guess it's very subjective, right? But you have your inker and then you have your colorist. And sometimes, you know, what you're trying to accomplish, there's it's a little difficult sometimes, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
how it's taken from you as the creator from both those aspects, which are extremely important to the story, could really change the story a little bit if the palette's a little bit off, or if the
Mhm.
so and I want to be careful because you've done some great things with others where you had an inker and you had a color. So obviously it works. It's been working in the industry for a long time. But did you
Yeah,
find like this just made life so much easier because he could do both and that those
yeah.
really mirror and align with the story that you're trying to tell?
Yeah, exactly. I actually prefer you know, it's really um amazing to see so many people working on a story and be able to accomplish what they intended to, you know, if working with a penciler and an inker and a colorist and a writer. I mean, a lot of the time, a lot of our comics that we read, that's how things are done. And it's like, wow, it's, you know, it's almost like playing a game of telephone with all these different creators because it's like you expect them to kind of know what they're supposed to do with it. And, you know, there's so many notes you have to give. There's a lot of editing involved when you're making comics and, you know, even with the lettering too, you know, it's like
Yeah.
how your words on the page are being displayed and written and what kind of font, you know, is being used. All of that stuff is so important to, you know, making your story legible, making it, you know, uh, an experience to be enjoyed because you know good or bad lettering can break your book. You know, it's like, man, if it's not, if it's not clear, if it's not um you know in order, you know, you got to make sure the letterer is paying attention to your script and how things are supposed to be written, how the conversation is being done. So I really prefer to work with as few people as possible because I'm able to, you know, Jay Mazar, the artist for Manchild, he also does the colors as well, and so that just makes things a lot easier because when he's inking, when he's penciling, he's thinking about the colors. You know, he's thinking about this is gonna look, you know, like this here, and this will look like this here, and you know you can kind of have that foresight because you know you're going to be working on that later. And Marco does the same thing when he'll send me his inks or his layouts and he'll say, you know, this is going to be this color and you know we're going to make it look like this. And it's just so much easier to like get all of that from the get-go rather than being like, I hope the colorist does your inks justice, you know what I mean? So um but I, you know, some of my other projects like Lifeline, I worked with a lot of different artists, and a lot of them did their own colors, but there was one where, you know, it was colors on inks from a different person, and it was like, ooh, you know, this is I've never done this before. Like, how do we make sure this looks right, and how do we make sure that the inker, you know, the artist is happy with it too? You know, you don't want you don't want the artist to be like, what'd you do? You know, like, what, you messed up my art or whatever. So making sure everyone's kind of in agreement, and making sure everyone's happy. You know, I really want that to be the case with the finished product. And so it makes it a lot easier to work with someone who, you know, can have that conversation with themselves, and they can be happy with the work and happy with the colors. And in any case, I think the process, especially as an indie creator, it just makes it a little bit more streamlined.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, can you kind of talk about the next step in the process? Like I see the finished product.
Yeah.
How can people get their hands on this? When is it available, or is it already available? Where do people go for this? Do you have a Kickstarter coming up for this particular title? How about all that good stuff, Nandor?
Yeah. So actually, I have an Indiegogo campaign right now that's live for the Fabled Offering. So the book is
Right.
completely done. I just sent it to the printer. It's going to be here in about, I don't know, a month or two at the latest. It's completely finished, and we're all good to go. And I'm just waiting for the books to be here, and I'll ship them out to backers. I did a Kickstarter campaign last year for it, and we were able to raise over $5,100 and made the book and got it all ready to go. And the Indiegogo campaign right now that I have is basically my online storefront where people can purchase the Fabled Offering, they can purchase Seasons, they can purchase Manchild. So all of my other works are available as add-ons. So if you want to get the Fabled Offering, and then you look and see, I have descriptions of my other books on that campaign page. You can see my other titles, and you can see, oh, I want to get this. I also have a tier where I call it the Foxhole Comics bundle. That's my imprint, Foxhole Comics, and you can get all of my books through that tier. So it's everything's available there, and that's where I'm pointing everyone to get to if they want to purchase the Fabled Offering. And if you just want a PDF of it, for people who just want to read digital comics, you can get a PDF as well. That's available, and it's only like $6. So I mean, it's really cheap, really affordable. But it is a 46-page, sci-fi fantasy epic. So you're gonna get your money's worth. And I'm encouraging everyone to talk to me about it. I want to talk about the story. I want to talk about the process and what people think of it. And it's been, so far it's been great. And I'm really looking forward, for when the physical copies come and I send them out and people can, for me, that's like when it's real, like when the books are here. Even though people have been reading the story, that's awesome. I'm really happy with that. But like when the books are finally here and I'm shipping them out, that's when I'll feel like this chapter of my, this chapter is closed and I can move on to the next thing. And I have Manchild issue 3 coming up for a Kickstarter campaign that will be launching October 1st. And then I also have, I'll be re-releasing Seasons volumes 1 and 2 as trade paperbacks. And then we're getting ready for volume 3 to drop. So got a few things in the pipeline that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, congratulations, Nandor, man. It's freaking awesome, man. At such a young age to be already have so much out there. That's pretty cool, man. And I can say that because I am getting pretty old, man. I'm a late starter on the writing journey, man. So you got in really early, and you're obviously killing it. So congratulations on all of that. Now, if fans want to follow you and everything else that you're doing, from a social media standpoint, YouTube, all of that, can you kind of share how people could do that?
Yes. So I really highly encourage everyone to please actually subscribe to my newsletter. If you look up Foxhole Comics on Substack, or the URL is foxholecomics.substack.com. It'll bring you straight to my newsletter, and you can subscribe. That's where you get first, dibs and sneak peeks on everything that I'm working on. And so please subscribe to my newsletter. I do have my YouTube channel, Foxhole Comics. And I do video essays. I do live streams. I just did a live stream last week where I talked about kind of the future of Foxhole Comics and the projects that I have and sharing art and things. So that was really fun. And then you can find me on X at Nandor Fox, and then also on Facebook and Instagram. Just yeah, I'm probably easy to find, you know, if you type in Nandor, you know, like so you can find me. You can find me
Yeah.
on all those platforms. But yeah, highly encourage, you know, YouTube and newsletter because that's where you'll get kind of the premium content.
Love it. Love it, Nandor. Anything else that we're leaving out, Nandor, that you think fans should know?
Man, I think we covered a lot. I do want to just encourage everyone again to please, you know, if you're a fan of sci-fi fantasy, to go to the Indiegogo campaign and
Absolutely.
purchase a copy of the Fabled Offering and any of my other titles. You know, I can only continue to make comics, you know, if people buy them, if people want them, and so it's you know, it's definitely been a sacrifice, but it's been a good sacrifice that, you know, I've made, and I'm really excited about the future. And you know, there's some exciting things happening. I'm working on a new story right now that I'm really excited to pitch and to work with uh, other, you know, potential publishers with, or you know, we'll see what happens. But like I have a lot in store for the future, and I want people to be a part of it. You know, I want them to see, you know, to grow together and to make this thing happen. And just, you know, I'm going to keep making comics, and I you know, it seems like um, no matter how hard you push yourself, or you're sharing your stuff, there's always going to be that one more person that will find you and that will
Yeah.
discover you. And even though I've been doing this for a few years, it feels like every year, every time I put out a new book, people are discovering me for the first time. And that's really great. Like, I love that because it keeps me on my toes, and it keeps everything really fresh and exciting. So I just want to encourage people to, you know, seek me out, seek out my work. And hopefully if you like it, you know, you'll like my other stuff too.
Yeah. Well, incredible, Nandor. As I mentioned at the very beginning, man, it was such a pleasure to get to meet you. I'm hoping that with Heroic Awards Part 2, we'll be able to work together again. I had a
Yeah.
blast hanging out with you and the whole crew, Rick, everybody, man, Big Fish, all of them, man. It was a lot of fun. We had a really good time. Hopefully, you won't have to sit like a taco in between two other chairs to the
Yeah.
airport. That
And yeah, Rick's place is a lot bigger, so don't worry.
okay,
If yeah, I've been there, and yeah, it's way more spacious. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I think that would be great. You know, it's even though, you know, I don't know, it's kind of like being a teenager and being with all your friends, and you know, doing not stupid stuff, but like, because it's productive and it's great, but like you're rallying around um you know, art and you know, beauty and all this, you know, all these really cool things and other people and creators. And it's just, you know, it's a really special community, you know. And I think a lot of people just don't, maybe they don't have that, you know. And when you find your tribe, or you find your people, and you're able to do these things and get along with each other. I mean, all of us got along. That's what was so cool too. It's like we were just hanging out, doing like all of the fun things. It's like we didn't need you know, we didn't need introductions. We could just
yeah,
hang out and have fun. And you know, that's kind of amazing when you think about
yeah.
it, because people are so specific, and they have all of their idiosyncrasies and whatnot. But for us to be able to do that and get along was just like, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah, it was, man. We just kind of all blended right away, and that doesn't happen all the time. I felt like I knew everybody forever by the
Yeah,
time we all left, which is really cool. And so yeah, man. Until next time, Nandor, man. I cannot wait to meet you again, hang out with you,
same.
and I
Yeah.
really appreciate. We'll make sure below that we put down everything about the Indiegogo, all the different ways that people could follow you. And man, you know, you're always welcome anytime you want to come hang out, man. I think it would be a blast to have you on again. But really appreciate you spending a weekend with me, my friend.
No problem. Yeah, I'll have to fly out to Cali sometime. That'd
Let's
be
do
fun.
it. Let's do it, man.
Yeah.
You know, I live in this really small town close to Palm Springs, and
Oh,
both Palm
cool.
Springs has a couple comic book shops, and then my little town called Hemet has a comic book shop. So I'm very spoiled that we have some comic book shops here, and we're not
Yeah.
too far from like 10 others, which is crazy because I talk to a lot of people that they got to drive 2 hours to a comic shop. So I feel
Oh,
really spoiled, man, that I have
yeah.
so many surrounding me. So we'd
Man.
have a lot of fun. We could do signings, all that good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. That would be great. I've been to I wasn't in LA, but a few years ago I was in California and I was like in east of LA in like San Bernardino, and it was like
Ah,
beautiful. I
yeah,
loved it. And you know, being in the Midwest when it's hot, the humidity is just like so bad. And so like going somewhere where it's like warm, but it's like nice warm is just like
yeah,
beautiful. And all my allergies go away. It's just
yeah.
like it's perfect. Like, man. But yeah, that would be really cool. I would love to do that.
Yeah, yeah, it'd be awesome, man. We have a dry hot, so
Yes,
you
that's
don't
right.
sweat, you just burn to death, but you don't sweat
You
to
don't
death.
realize it that you're burning to death because you don't feel it as much.
Exactly, exactly, man. All right, Mr. Nandor, have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much again for hanging out with me, and until next time, my friend, I hope you do well.
Thank you. You too, Tommy. Thanks so much.
All right, my friend, take it easy.
You too.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.